Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome to everything I know about Ruby life pools. I'm going to go as quick as I can for the sake of time, but I want to give you guys everything I know about this dungeon to help you clear it. I just want to give this a bit of a preface, a preface, if you will, that dungeon sucks. This place is hard, it's probably getting nerfed. Just know when you're healing this that it's tough. Start with lower key levels, right? Practice this dungeon. A lot of groups are gonna fry here and give up early. I'm gonna give you everything I got. Tell the party the things we need to tell them, and I promise you, you can clear this dungeon. Can you clear it at a super high key level? Honest to God, it's hard. I did a 15 with my former guild Toast. A massive shout outs to all of them for helping me figure out a decent amount of these fights, and we found some good strategies, but they're hard. So giving everyone the best advice you can, telling people in your dungeons what to do as quickly as possible is going to be kind of mandatory for higher levels, but run these strats and I think you got this. So let's get into it. All right, so the first pack here with the Juggernauts and the Earthshaper and Terra Sentry, on higher keys I would just grab these three alone and then do a big pull in the main room. These Juggernauts just cause so many problems, but in lower keys or on certain keys in Tyrannical, you might find you can grab an extra pack just fine here. I don't really mind how you guys want to clear this. As long as you're avoiding stuff on the ground and you're CCing where you can, you're good. Chill Weavers will have a shield. I really like to kick the shield, but their ice bolts, they hurt, but they're not that spooky. There's just a lot of incoming damage that ends up happening here. As long as you're aware that it's coming in, you're going to be fine. I want to take a moment while I have this shot in front of us. A lot of groups like to pull the pack in front of us, and I'm not sure if they're going to grab the one immediately to my left, but there's a pack over here to the left that people tend to ass pull, and sometimes this Chill Weaver with the whelps. Honestly, I'd rather you get a little extra percent down here and maybe skip one of the dragons or skip Dragar, the mini boss, before the first boss, because this is just so easy to pull with your butt. And the reason is there's a sentry here that's walking around. And when this Juggernaut sentry thing is here, they're going to drop an AoE on the party. And while that AoE in this pull is going to happen up in melee, there's a chance it happens down here. And then the team runs slightly to the left, and then we end up grabbing those packs. So it's more important that I think you grab those packs early and just change how you get your percentage on the top side, because it's a really easy way to wipe a run early. And while there is enough time here to play with a wipe or two, I don't want it to be in the part where it is the easiest to survive. So make sure you do that and you'll be on your way. All right, Dragar. So if you do end up fighting Dragar, Steel Barrage throws down fireballs, dodge them on the ground accordingly. The tank might get a little fried here. Remember to heal them if they're struggling. But honest to God, this isn't the hardest mini boss. It's just that right after Steel Barrage ends, the next immediate action that they take is that they Blazing Rush. And if this hits someone, it puts an incredibly hard to heal dot on them. Let them die. If you cannot heal them under normal means, let them die. Do not be popping emergency cooldowns right before this boss fight. I'm going in here with half a rewind back, and maybe my Emerald Commune was coming off cooldown like at a minute and a half. I'd be all right with that. But if you're not going to get your cooldowns back during the scary parts of this boss fight, it might as well be GG. Keep these buttons safe. Keep your emergencies around, depending on what healing spec you are. And after that, though, you have a moment to just blast the boss. Also, just to give you a visual here on Blazing Rush, the Druid gets hit here, but not the Warlock. Do you see how close those two are together? It's not a very hard move to dodge, so just make sure you respect that move, and then you're granted this time to just heal and damage afterwards. Just be respectful. In melee, if you get hit with it, I'm judging you heavily. Okay, Chillwarn. This boss, I don't have to explain too much, but it's a very challenging boss. So, one of the hardest heals is the Chill Storm. This is the one that will happen forever. It never goes away. You're going to get a bomb that sucks everyone in and then pushes them out. If they get pushed into a hail bomb, they'll explode and instantly die. But as long as everyone is aware of what direction they're getting pulled in, they're going to know what direction they're going to get pushed in. position accordingly. The Chill Storm does a very large amount of damage to the team. So you can see it happen right now. And you're going to want to get out of it pretty quick so you don't take any extra damage from it. But I Zephyr to reduce some of the incoming damage here, and it still puts us pretty low. Now you have a moment to heal afterwards. So get everyone up as fast as possible while Awaken Whelps happens. Do not pad. The one thing you're probably going to be telling your group here is single target the boss's shield down, maybe hold cooldowns for boss's shield. It's also an excellent time to lust in this fight, is to lust the first shield phase so that you guys can blast through it early and have a good opening, and you'll have lust, so you might be able to avoid using a bigger healing cooldown simply because you can heal fast enough to keep up with that damage. Holding a cooldown for a round here is probably the most beneficial thing, because there's only 4 sets of adds, and then this move stops happening. But Frost Overload, it doesn't do more damage than a Chill Storm at first. So if it gets single targeted down efficiently and you can actually kick the boss, you're good to go. However, if it doesn't happen, chances are your group's going down. The Whelps can stick around. They don't hurt that much, but they do apply a debuff to the tank. I think it's 8 stacks, the tank will become frozen solid, and GG's runs dead. So I imagine it's the most important thing for you to clear this when it's around 4, or whenever you have a free moment to clear it. If it goes above 4, throw your focus over to it, because if 2 Whelps decide to Cold Claw and stack the tank, they're then going to be 2 away, and you might not be reacting to the next one. So 4 is a nice safe number for that. And this is a lot of incoming damage, but the moment that kick's available, it's done. So if your group's effective, do that. But that's the whole fight. Chill Storm does a lot, save cooldowns, some cooldowns to get through those, and save some cooldowns to get through the shield. If your DPS do not survive that, shield going down becomes a harder and harder heal check. So it is very important that you keep your DPS alive. Tell them to use their defensives if they get low on Chill Storm. That's probably the best use of their defensive here, as if they're using a defensive during that AoE that's happening with the boss, they probably didn't DPS it fast enough, or you didn't pop something to keep them all up accordingly. But there it is. That's the boss fight. You rinse and repeat this until it's over. All right, top side, we have a few notes to make. First, about the dragons. Storm Dragon is the one I like to skip. If you can't skip it, tell people to use their defensives when they get the debuff on them. The debuff, when cleared by you, does AoE damage around them. So it's a little hard to clear, and the damage over time is pretty heavy. I don't recommend going left side for this reason. I don't want us to run into the dragon when we just used all our cooldowns on a boss fight. Going around the right side allows us to fight the fire dragon first and fight the fire dragon after getting some cooldowns back, and the fire dragon doesn't hurt nearly as bad, in my opinion. So Storm Dragon sucks, but as long as people aren't getting hit by the breath, you're fine. Let people die. If people die to the breath, they just respawn and they take the flight of shame. Keep people close here and you'll do fine. Okay, so the destroyers are the main target here. Destroyers need to be killed for the boss to be able to be fightable, and the only other spell here you have to worry about is Cinder Weaver, Cinder Bolts. These hit pretty hard, but they're also the only interrupt in any of these pulls. So you can just hold your interrupts for Cinder Bolts and it'll reduce a lot of the incoming damage. Destroyers do Inferno. Inferno is just group wide that hurts like hell. You want to be really cautious of Inferno, but that's it. Now, there is one more move we have to talk about, and that's Living Bomb. So, see these Flame Dancers? And you're about to watch 2 people get destroyed because of this. Flame Dance, when it goes off, does a massive amount of damage, and that'll probably become unhealable in a Fortified Key. Save your knockups and whatnot for this. No, I don't use my knockup here. Admittedly, I'm frustrated with the tank because they still haven't let me had a drink since before the boss fight, so I'm annoyed. So that's on me. I let 2 people die. Just don't let that happen. Use your knockups here. Use your stuns. Use your whatever you have to stop those. However, Living Bomb from the next boss. See this Living Bomb? It'll actually stop channels when it goes off, including Flame Dance. And it tends to line up pretty well with Flame Dance for whatever reason. If there's no Living Bomb in melee, please use some form of CC to stop Flame Dance. However, the bomb doesn't actually hit very hard. It hits pretty weak. it's the damage over time that the living bomb gives the player that does the most of its damage. So have them move into melee, you're going to heal them so that they don't die to the bomb. The bomb doesn't hit very hard. So run it in like you see this hunter player doing, and it'll just do its job, which is great. We love that. All right, Flame Gullet. Don't get hit by the frontal. Okay, at half health, Flame Gullet will start doing AoE damage to the party, and it ramps. This is spooky. This can become very hard to heal, but as long as players know to pop their cooldowns at half health and hit execute, they'll be fine. Tell players, hey, use your cooldowns when the dragon's at half health. Done. You hit execute phase and the thing dies. So try to save your buttons for any disasters happening when this dragon's low, but at half health, it starts to ramp. But it's not out of control. It hurts, but you'll notice right now, this is, of course, tyrannical, not fortified. We're not getting roasted because of this. And the thing's almost dead. Yeah, on fortified, it would take a little bit more, but I firmly believe we have the resources to survive that just fine. So if you're gonna skip one of the dragons, skip the Thunder Dragon. I think the Fire Dragon's much more manageable, especially with defensives, because it's only that end of life scenario that's hard. All right, boss fight. This one's hard. I'm mostly going to show the 15 footage with my with Toast, because we found a strategy that works, but it's a little complicated. The boss is going to do things in these phases. Okay, a boulder might get sent, but ad's going to spawn based on player proximity. After the ad's initial explosion goes off, the ad's going to cast a spell called Inferno that is unkickable and will do most of the raid-wide damage you need to heal. That is by far the largest source of incoming damage other than a tank buster. As long as your team is kicking all the Raging Infernos or Raging Blaze or whatever, Roaring Blaze, that happen afterwards, there will not be any more insane incoming damage you have to worry about. Then a tank buster goes off, Searing Blows, I want to say it's called, and that's going to chunk your tank, so be prepared to help them out. As a preservation player, Time Dilation and Reversion here are your best friends. After a few of those strikes go off, you can start using Reversion to spam heal them for damage recently taken, and then the spell's over and they can stabilize. So just remember to care for your tank there. Now, I tell players to follow me, because we found a dance here that works well, and you've already been seeing it, but I'm going to replay this clip from the start. Start by having your group bait the first ad away from the boss. Use as much of this middle area as possible. You have the ad spawn, and then you all move in, staying on the back side of the boss. Essentially, all 4 players that are not the tank are where a boulder could be fired. So all of you should be having the boss face you in a direction that would send the boulder into Narnia, not into a wall, and not down the path you guys plan on walking. If it is going to go into a wall, pray that you're all, I think, 12 yards from where the ball would explode, because it will probably kill all of you if it does hit a wall next to you. But Inferno is the only thing from the ad that's doing a lot of damage. So as long as the ball doesn't hit anyone, Inferno should be the only thing that you're massively healing. So you simply get the ad to spawn, stay on the backside of the boss, dodge the boulder, fight the ad. Make sure everyone's doing their job kicking, but then you're good. Then be prepared to keep the tank alive. Once the ad dies, you all move out, stay on the backside of that boss so that you can bait the ad back into position and then do the same forward and back dance. I know this is confusing, and I will let this clip run as long as possible. Please try to follow this to the best of your abilities. If you tell the pugs to follow you, they should be good. And tell them, like, ranged follow me. Like, don't let anyone be a lazy caster sitting out on the other side of the planet if they can avoid it. You might find that, like, a mage is good at baiting a boulder into a position and then they can blink back. That's totally fine if they know what they're doing, but it's so easy to just tell people to follow you and you learn the movements here. And it's worth the practice, because this is probably one of the hardest parts of the fight, where you're doing something the closest I've ever seen to a Final Fantasy Savage raid fight in terms of walking in and out to bait things. But honestly, get it down, and that's the only hard part about this fight. You're going to be saving your cooldowns for a few disasters that could happen, but realistically, I found this to be pretty freaking healable once we got the dance down. So hardest part of the fight, but listen, that back and forth sending boulders backwards is the most important part. Even if you mess up the positioning, as long as those boulders are being sent backwards, you're going to be good. If you have no cooldowns on a fortified week, I recommend just taking these 2 warriors at the top of the stairs on alone and then going down here so you have some cooldowns, because the storm that goes off on this group of adds, lightning storm, is unavoidable, unCCable damage. So if you don't have anything to help the party survive this one, it's best to just let a few things come off cooldown on the easier 2 warrior pack. But just know this is a lot of intensive healing, and try to save some of your emergency buttons for the final boss because you're going to need them. Now, what I'm writing in the footage right now is flash fire is a kick or die. Yes, the fire channelers have a kick or die move. This is why I don't think you should take these 2 packs together. I think it is reasonable that you might be able to take the mini boss before the boss and this right side fire pack. You can probably take them together on a low key, or if your group is very heavily AoE flavored. But in all seriousness, the flash fire channel will just start to kill someone unhealably fast, and it must be interrupted. So as a healer, hold on to your kick. If you're a priest and you don't have a kick, cry about it and hope someone kicks it for you. But that is your most important move in these. Riadi in this last pull is, I hope, Rivadi, I don't know how to say, I hope I'm saying that right, homie. But this ad has a shield, a Tempest Storm shield. Kill the shield or the party's gonna take a ton of damage. It's not the hardest thing to do. They didn't nerf the crap out of it. And yeah, this sort of can get a little out of hand. This sometimes does get a emergency cooldown out of me from the lightning storm, but just keep the dispels up on players so that it doesn't get out of control, because they do take little thunder dots every once in a while. And I find this fight to be pretty manageable as long as you're doing that. Now, before we get into the boss fight, it is important to note there's 2 packs to the side here of just those shielded elementals. Take them out. They're not worth any percent, but when not being blasted, they tend to fry someone, unfortunately, especially on fortified weeks. So I recommend just clearing those out of the way so you have a nice big wide open arena. All right, this has been the strat that's been most helpful for me, and you want to hold lust for when the 2 of these bosses merge with each other. However, I don't, how do I put this? This is a really challenging fight, and what I'm about to say is going to sound really challenging, but this has been the easiest method for me so far. Between Stormvein and Kairaka, Kairaka has the lower health pool. So you want to take out Kairaka first. Kairaka will join up with Stormvein, and then you cleave them down. Kairaka is the most deadly. So whenever Kairaka and Stormvein are in the sky, she's going to cast Flame Spit. Flame Spit applies a damage over time to the target that receives it, and then they drop a puddle of bad. That will also apply a bomb to someone if they stay in it, or if they even like dare us touch it. So the problem we found, and a huge shout out to my homie Starfalls from Toast who figured this out, is that dot doubles up if you are standing next to someone. So stand roughly 7 yards apart, 5 yards apart from your homies, and you will not be overlapping circles. Then move away from each other to drop the bombs. This is gonna get technical and challenging, but a defensive and a self-heal is usually enough to keep you alive at some of these levels, as long as you are not doubling up that bomb. Doubling up the bomb is where it goes to crap. So do everything in your power to stay split up when Kairaka's in the air. This sucks, and this is why I like to hold lust for when they're together, so that you can just properly DPS down Kairaka. And then it's just Stormvein, who blows you all around and puts a stacking debuff on the tank that makes the subsequential tank buster hit harder. So make sure you're clearing that at 2 stacks every time, right? If they hit the 3 stacks, they're probably going to explode on the next one. And I'm sure on some difficulty levels, 2 stacks is too much. So try to keep the dispels up as often as possible, but that's it. Stormvein just does something that you have to dispel, and otherwise you just blast the boss and it's over. One small tricky note, Kairaka's aggro table resets when she goes to join up. So, or I think she resets. She slacked a few of my DPS before. So just make sure, tank, you're doing your best to make sure you get aggro over her when she starts setting back down to combine with Stormvane. But this is so tricky. And this fight is hard. And yeah, there's a chance that it gets nerfed and this will all be really useful information, but the fight's just simply more survivable. But be nice to yourself here, especially because a lot of you, I've learned from my viewership, are people running anything between the start of Mythics, so 2s and 3s, to like 7s and 8s. Some of you are trying to big push, and I love the heck out of that. But this is still hard on lower keys as well. But I think it's very doable. The dances might seem a bit intimidating and whatnot, and I know how hard that sounds. But as you fight these bosses, it'll make more sense. And if you learn the dance, you can tell people to follow you, and that'll make a huge difference. But this is a hard one. I've given you everything I possibly know about these dungeons, and I leave it to you to figure out the rest and how to clear it with your class and spec. But honestly, it's doable. Hard, but doable. Pat yourself on the back if you clear this one before it gets nerfed into the ground. And if it doesn't get nerfed into the ground, I'll continue talking about this for the rest of the time until we're on season 2 to help you all through it. But I hope this advice helped, y'all. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll have more dungeon guides to come. These are longer than expected, but I think they're pretty worthwhile, and I know you guys have really been looking forward to them. I'm going to do the no coup defensive next. I'll see you all there.